The church doors slowly opened. Everyone turned to stare at the bride. Her name was Emily, a poor girl who had nothing except debt, a sick mother, and a desperate decision she would regret for the rest of her life. Today, she was marrying a man she had never met. Not for love. Not for happiness. But for money. Her hands trembled as she walked down the aisle. Her mind screamed that this was wrong, but she had no choice. But just when the priest was about to begin the ceremony, something shocking happened. 3 black luxury cars suddenly stopped outside the church. Men in expensive suits rushed inside. And one of them whispered something into the groom's ear. Suddenly the entire atmosphere changed. The guests gasped. The priest froze. And Emily realized something that made her heart nearly stop. The stranger she was about to marry was not poor. He was a billionaire hiding his identity. And the reason he chose her would soon change her life forever. Before we continue, welcome to Prime Tale. If you enjoy emotional billionaire stories filled with shocking twists, love, betrayal, and powerful comebacks, make sure you subscribe and stay until the end. Because this story only gets more shocking from here. Now let's begin. Emily Parker's life had never been easy. At only 23 years old, she was already drowning in problems most people twice her age would struggle to survive. Her father had passed away when she was 16. Her mother had been diagnosed with a serious heart condition 2 years later. Hospital bills piled up like mountains. And Emily worked 3 jobs just to keep them from losing their tiny apartment. Morning, waitress at a small cafe. Afternoon, cleaning offices. Night, delivering food across the city. Sleep was a luxury she barely remembered. But no matter how hard she worked, the debt only grew. One evening, while delivering food to a luxury apartment building, Emily overheard something strange. 2 rich women were talking in the lobby. "He's offering $10 million to any woman willing to marry him," one whispered. Emily froze. $10 million? "That family is desperate," the other replied. "Their son must marry immediately, but he refuses to date anyone. So they arranged a contract marriage." Emily tried to ignore it. But those words kept echoing in her head. $10 million. That money could save her mother. Pay every hospital bill. Give them a new life. For the next 3 nights, she couldn't sleep. Finally, on the 4th day, Emily did something she never imagined she would do. She applied. Emily arrived at a massive corporate building the following morning. The lobby alone was larger than the entire cafe where she worked. A man in a suit greeted her. "Are you here for the marriage interview?" Her face turned red. Yes. She expected humiliation. She expected rejection. But instead, they handed her a contract. The terms were simple. A legal marriage lasting 1 year. No romantic obligations. Total financial compensation, $10 million. Emily's hands trembled. "This can't be real," she whispered. The man simply smiled. "There is one condition," he said. "You will meet the groom only on the wedding day." Emily frowned. "That's strange." The man replied calmly. "Our client values privacy." Emily looked down at the contract again. $10 million. Her mother's life depended on this. After a long silence, she signed. But what she didn't know was that the man she agreed to marry had been watching her through a security camera the entire time. And he had already made a decision about her. Across the city, inside a glass skyscraper office, a man stood silently watching Emily's interview recording. His name was Alexander Reed. Age, 29. Net worth, $14 billion. CEO of Reed Global Holdings. One of the most powerful businessmen in the country. And also a man completely tired of fake relationships. Every woman he met only wanted his money. His family pressured him constantly. Marry someone suitable. Secure the family legacy. But Alexander hated the idea of marrying a gold digger. So he created a plan. A contract marriage with someone who didn't know who he was. Someone genuine. Someone desperate enough to be honest. When Emily walked into the interview, something about her caught his attention immediately. She looked nervous. Embarrassed. Ashamed. But she never lied. When they asked why she needed the money, she simply said, "My mother will die if I don't." No acting. No manipulation. Just truth. Alexander turned off the screen. "She's the one," he said quietly. 2 weeks later. Emily stood outside the church wearing a wedding dress she could barely afford. Her stomach twisted with anxiety. She had never even seen the man she was about to marry. What if he's horrible, she thought. What if he's cruel? But it was too late to turn back. The church doors opened. And Emily walked down the aisle. The groom stood at the altar wearing a simple black suit. His face was calm. Cold. Mysterious. She couldn't read him at all. But just as the ceremony began, luxury cars arrived outside. Dozens of bodyguards rushed in. Guests started whispering. One woman gasped loudly. "That's Alexander Reed." Emily frowned. "Who?" Then someone shouted. "The billionaire CEO." Her heart stopped. She slowly turned toward the man she was marrying. And suddenly everything made sense. The confidence. The bodyguards. The silence. She had just married one of the richest men in the world. After the ceremony, Emily sat quietly in the limousine beside her new husband. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally she whispered, "You're a billionaire." Alexander glanced at her. "You didn't know?" Emily shook her head slowly. "No." For the first time, Alexander looked surprised. Then he laughed softly. "Good." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "It means you didn't marry me for my money." Emily almost laughed. "I literally married you for money." Alexander smirked. "Yes. But not my money." And for the first time that day, Emily smiled. But neither of them realized something dangerous had already begun. Someone powerful did not want this marriage to succeed. 3 days later, Emily experienced her first taste of billionaire life. Luxury mansion. Private chefs. Staff everywhere. It felt unreal. But the peace didn't last long. One afternoon a beautiful woman arrived unannounced. Her name was Victoria Lang. Daughter of another billionaire family. She walked into the mansion like she owned it. When she saw Emily sitting in the living room, she laughed. "So this is the poor girl who trapped Alexander." Emily stood up. "I didn't trap anyone." Victoria stepped closer. "You have no idea who you married." Emily replied quietly. "I know enough." Victoria's smile disappeared. Then she whispered something chilling. "This marriage will not last." And from that moment, Emily realized she had stepped into a dangerous world far beyond her understanding. Later that night, Alexander returned home and immediately noticed Emily looked upset. "What happened?" She hesitated, then told him about Victoria. Alexander's face darkened instantly. "She came here." Emily nodded. "I didn't know she was important." Alexander sighed. "She isn't important. She's just persistent."
Alexander walked closer. "She's been trying to marry me for 3 years. Emily blinked. "Oh." Alexander studied her face. "You're not jealous." Emily laughed softly. "This is a contract marriage, remember?" But Alexander didn't laugh. Because for the first time, He realized he didn't want to stay that way. 1 month later, Emily's mother successfully completed heart surgery. The hospital bill was completely paid. Emily finally felt peace. But that same night, she accidentally discovered something shocking. While looking for documents in Alexander's office, she found a private investigation file with her name on it. Inside were photos, records, personal details about her life. Alexander had been studying her for months before the contract marriage. Emily's hands shook. Why? Just then the office door opened. Alexander walked in. He saw the file in her hands. Silence filled the room. Emily looked at him with hurt in her eyes. You already knew everything about me. Alexander didn't deny it. Instead, he said something that changed everything. I chose you for a reason. Emily's heart pounded. What reason? Alexander stepped closer and quietly replied, because you're the only woman who ever told me the truth. But Emily had no idea that the real reason was even more shocking. And when she discovers it, their entire marriage will be tested. The room fell silent after Alexander's words. Emily still held the investigation file in her trembling hands. So you've been watching me before we even met? She asked slowly. Alexander didn't deny it. Yes. Emily's chest tightened. That's creepy. Alexander sighed and walked toward the window. You think I did to control you, he said. But the truth is, I needed to know who I was marrying. Emily crossed her arms. And what did you find? Alexander turned back to her. I found someone who works 3 jobs to save her mother's life. Emily's eyes softened slightly. I found someone who returned a wallet with $10,000 inside instead of keeping it. Emily froze. You knew about that? Alexander nodded. And I found someone who cried in the hospital hallway because she couldn't afford another surgery. Emily's voice trembled. You were spying on me. Alexander looked directly into her eyes. I was making sure you were real. For the first time, Emily didn't know what to say. But something inside her heart shifted. Maybe this man wasn't as cold as she thought. Yet neither of them realized that someone else had just discovered the investigation file too. And that discovery would soon cause chaos. Across the city, Victoria Lang sat in her luxury penthouse apartment. Her assistant nervously handed her a tablet. You should see this. Victoria frowned as she looked at the screen. Photos of Emily, her job history, her background. Victoria smirked. So the poor girl has secrets too. The assistant hesitated. What do you plan to do? Victoria's smile turned cruel. I'm going to destroy her. Meanwhile, at the Reed mansion, Emily tried to forget about the file. But the next morning something strange happened. When she opened her phone, thousands of notifications flooded her screen. Messages, comments, photos. Someone had leaked her past online. Old pictures of her working as a waitress. Videos of her delivering food. Headlines spreading across social media. Billionaire CEO marries poor delivery girl. Gold digger scandal. Emily's heart pounded. How did this happen? And deep inside the city, Victoria Lang watched the internet explode with laughter. But she didn't realize one important thing. Alexander Reed protected what belonged to him. And Emily was now his wife. Alexander walked into his office and immediately felt the tension. Every employee looked nervous. His assistant rushed toward him. Sir, there's a situation online. Alexander glanced at the screen. The headlines made his expression turn ice cold. Emily's past was everywhere. Mocked, humiliated, exposed. Alexander spoke only 2 words. Who did this? Within minutes his security team began investigating. Meanwhile at the mansion, Emily sat alone staring at the comments. Gold digger. Poor girl hunting billionaires. She trapped him. Tears filled her eyes. Just then the door opened. Alexander walked in. He looked at the phone in her hands. Then at her face. Did you read them? He asked quietly. Emily nodded. It's fine, she whispered. Alexander's voice hardened. No, it isn't. He took out his phone and made one call. Shut it down. Within 20 minutes, something unbelievable happened. Every article disappeared. Every video vanished. Every account posting the rumors was banned. Emily stared in shock. How did you do that? Alexander simply replied, I told you. I protect what's mine. Emily's heart skipped a beat. But somewhere else, Victoria realized she had just started a war. Days passed. The scandal faded. Life slowly returned to normal. But something between Emily and Alexander had changed. They spoke more, ate dinner together, even laughed sometimes. One evening they sat on the mansion balcony, watching the city lights. Emily suddenly asked, "Why did you really choose me?" Alexander leaned back in his chair. "I told you." "No," she said softly. "There's more." Alexander looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something unexpected. "The first time I saw you, you were feeding a stray dog behind the cafe." Emily blinked. "You noticed that?" Alexander nodded. "You gave it your lunch." Emily laughed awkwardly. "It looked hungry." Alexander smiled faintly. "That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were different." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. But before she could reply, Alexander's phone rang. His expression immediately turned serious. "What?" A long silence followed. Then he stood up quickly. "We have a problem." Emily's heart dropped. "What happened?" Alexander looked at her with concern. "Your mother is missing." Emily's world collapsed instantly. "What do you mean missing?" she cried. Alexander grabbed his coat. "The hospital called. She left earlier today but never arrived home." Emily's hand shook. "She would never do that." Alexander nodded. "I know." Within minutes, his entire security team was mobilized. Cameras, police contacts, private investigators. But the deeper they searched, the stranger the situation became. Finally, a message arrived on Alexander's phone. Unknown number. One photo. Emily gasped when she saw it. Her mother was sitting in a chair inside a dark room. Behind her stood a familiar face. Victoria Lang. Below the photo was a single message. "Divorce him or she suffers." Emily collapsed into the chair. Alexander's jaw tightened. They crossed the line. Emily grabbed his arm. "Please don't let anything happen to her." Alexander looked at the photo again. His voice turned dangerously calm. They just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Victoria believed she had already won. She sat comfortably in her private estate, sipping wine. Emily would divorce Alexander. Alexander would return to the marriage arrangement with her family. Everything would go back to the plan. But what Victoria didn't understand was how powerful Alexander Reed truly was. Across the city, his security chief spoke urgently. "We found them." Alexander stood up immediately. Location: an abandoned warehouse near the harbor. Emily grabbed his arm. "You're not going alone." Alexander looked at her. "It's dangerous." "She's my mother." After a moment, he nodded. "Stay close to me." And within the hour, black SUVs surrounded the warehouse. Inside, Victoria smiled when she heard the vehicles arrive. Right on time. But when the doors burst open, she realized something terrifying. Alexander didn't come alone. He came with an army. The warehouse lights flickered on. Security agents flooded the building. Victoria stepped backward in shock. This wasn't supposed to happen. Alexander walked forward slowly. "You kidnapped my mother-in-law," he said coldly. Victoria laughed nervously. "You married a poor girl. What did you expect?" Emily ran toward her mother and untied the ropes. "Mom." Tears streamed down her face. Meanwhile, Alexander stopped directly in front of Victoria. "You thought humiliating my wife was a game," he said quietly. Victoria's confidence disappeared. "You wouldn't dare." Alexander interrupted calmly. "You're finished." Within minutes, the police arrived. Victoria was taken away in handcuffs. And as the car doors slammed shut, Emily realized something important. Alexander hadn't just protected her. He had fought for her. Life returned to the mansion again. But this time, everything felt different. Emily watched Alexander from across the dinner table. "You didn't have to do all that," she said softly. Alexander raised an eyebrow. "For my wife." Emily hesitated. "For a contract." Alexander looked down at his glass. Then he said something surprising. "I don't want it to be a contract anymore." Emily's heart skipped. "What?" Alexander met her eyes. "I want this marriage to be real." Silence filled the room. Emily didn't know what to say. Because deep down, her heart had already started feeling the same way. Emily spent the entire night thinking. The next morning, she finally asked Alexander the question that had been haunting her. "What happens when the 1 year ends?" Alexander looked at her carefully. "It doesn't have to end." Emily felt nervous. "But the contract?" Alexander pulled out the document, then calmly tore it in half. "No more contract." Emily stared at the pieces of paper falling to the floor. "You're serious?" Alexander smiled slightly. "Completely." For the first time since their strange marriage began, Emily felt like she truly belonged there. But their happiness wouldn't remain peaceful for long, because a new enemy was already watching. 2 days later, Alexander's parents arrived at the mansion. They were not happy. His mother stared at Emily coldly. "So you're the girl who caused all this trouble." Emily felt her confidence shrink. Alexander stepped forward immediately. "She's my wife." His father sighed. "You married beneath your status." Emily looked down quietly, but Alexander placed a hand on her shoulder. "She's stronger than anyone you've ever introduced me to." His parents exchanged looks. Then his mother said something harsh. "This marriage will ruin the family reputation." Alexander's voice turned firm. "Then the reputation can change." Later that night, Emily stood alone on the balcony thinking. The pressure from Alexander's family was enormous. She didn't want to ruin his future. When Alexander found her there, she spoke first. "Maybe your parents are right." Alexander frowned. "About what?" "About me." Alexander shook his head immediately. "Don't say that." Emily looked at him sadly. "You deserve someone from your world." Alexander stepped closer. "You are my world." Emily's eyes filled with tears. 1 month later, a new wedding ceremony took place. But this time it wasn't a contract. It was a real celebration. Emily walked down the aisle again. But now she knew the man waiting for her. Alexander smiled as she reached him. "No contracts," he whispered. Emily laughed softly. "Just love." And as the ceremony ended, everyone realized something extraordinary. The poor girl who married stranger had truly captured the heart of a billionaire. And this time, it wasn't for money. It was forever. Emily thought life had finally settled. She woke up in the mansion with the sun spilling golden light across the grand bedroom. The wedding celebration was over. Alexander had promised her a future without contracts, and even his parents seemed to be softening. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. But fate rarely grants peace to those who deserve it most. That morning, a message appeared on her phone, an invitation. It was elegant, embossed with a wax seal, the kind she had never seen outside of films. The sender? Victoria Lang. Her heart sank. She had thought Victoria was locked away, defeated, humiliated by Alexander's overwhelming power and strategic victory. Yet here she was, boldly stepping back into Emily's life, as if nothing had happened. Emily showed the invitation to Alexander. His face tightened immediately. "Victoria's not done," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "She's cleverer than we gave her credit for. And she's not just coming after me, she's coming after you." Emily's stomach dropped. "Coming after her? Why?" Emily asked. "She's already humiliated herself." Alexander shook his head. "She never loses until she's crushed completely. And she still thinks she can win. She has connections, friends in places that you wouldn't believe. People who can ruin reputations overnight." Emily tried to steady herself. Her hands shook, but she refused to let fear dominate her. "Then we fight back," she said, gripping Alexander's arm. "We won't let her win." The following day, a mysterious figure appeared at the mansion gates. A young man, impeccably dressed, exuding confidence and charm. He introduced himself as Julian. Emily's intuition immediately sensed danger. Julian claimed to be a business associate of Victoria Lang, someone with influence and wealth. But Emily noticed the subtle glances he gave Alexander, the way he lingered near her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. For days, Julian lingered, attending dinners, charity events, and even casual lunches. At first, Emily tried to ignore him, but Alexander noticed her unease. "He's here for a reason," Alexander said one evening, his jaw clenched. "And it isn't just business." Emily tried to hide her fear, but it was impossible. Julian's presence was magnetic, manipulative, and unsettlingly persistent. Every time Emily turned a corner, there he was, casually offering compliments, commenting on her life, hinting at secrets he knew. Then came the first warning. Emily received an anonymous text. "You think you're safe. He can't protect you from everyone." She looked at the phone in her trembling hands. Alexander saw it immediately. "Do you know who sent this?" Emily asked, panic creeping into her voice. Alexander's face went stone cold. "Victoria's playing chess, and Julian is one of her pawns. She's testing us, seeing how far she can push you, push us." Emily's heart raced. She had survived public humiliation, threats to her mother, and near kidnappings. But this felt different. More intimate, more personal. Julian wasn't just a threat, He was a temptation, a challenge to her trust, and a threat to the fragile peace she had just begun to enjoy. Alexander didn't speak for a long moment, then finally said, "Emily, stay close to me. No matter what, she's going to try and turn you against me." For the first time, Emily realized the battlefield wasn't just corporate, not just external, it was emotional. Victoria wanted to shatter their bond, to manipulate feelings, to create chaos where love had just started to bloom. And as Emily looked out the window that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again. The following week, Julian's presence became unbearable. He attended a gala at the Reed Mansion, his every word calculated to charm, to disarm, to draw Emily into a web of doubt. Every compliment was loaded, every gesture carefully staged. Emily felt torn. She knew he was dangerous, but curiosity mixed with fear made it impossible to look away. During the gala, Julian approached Emily. "You must be exhausted," he said, leaning just slightly closer. His cologne was intoxicating. "After all this chaos, you deserve a moment." Emily's heart thumped. I don't know what you mean." Julian smiled. It was a smile that seemed to hold secrets she wasn't allowed to know. "Oh, come now. You're smart. You can feel it. You know things, you've survived things that would crush anyone else. But surviving doesn't mean you're happy, does it?" Emily felt herself pulled into his gaze. For a brief, terrifying moment, she wondered if Alexander was enough, if love alone could protect her from this whirlwind of manipulation. Across the room, Alexander watched quietly. He saw every subtle look, every small hesitation, every tiny flicker of doubt. Later that night, he confronted her in private. "Emily," he said, holding her hands, his voice low but intense. "Do not forget, he is not what he seems. Julian isn't a man, he's a weapon. Victoria's weapon. And she aims it at you." Emily shook her head. I know, but there's something about him." Alexander tightened his grip. "There's nothing about him you should ever trust. Nothing. He's here to test our bond, to see if he can break it. Do not let him. Not for a second." Emily's chest ached. She wanted to trust Alexander completely. But Julian's subtle manipulations, his whispers at events, and the way he lingered just long enough to make her doubt, it was terrifyingly effective. The next day, an envelope appeared on the mansion doorstep, unmarked. Inside, a photo of Emily and Alexander at the wedding, moments before Victoria's interference began. On the back, a message. "Even love can be broken. Are you strong enough to survive?" Emily's hands trembled. She knew the war wasn't over. It had merely shifted, the tension escalated. Emily discovered that Julian was more than a pawn. He had his own secrets, connections to Alexander's business rivals, and a personal vendetta. At the same time, she learned that Victoria's reach extended even into Alexander's personal life. Secrets she had believed were buried were now threatened to be exposed. Alexander, sensing the rising danger, decided it was time to take matters into his own hands. Emily, anxious yet determined, joined him in uncovering Julian's true motives. Together, they discovered an encrypted file that detailed Victoria's plan, a full-scale assault on Emily's reputation, a blackmail attempt to destroy her family's finances, and even hints of sabotaging Alexander's business deals. Emily couldn't believe the depth of the scheme. Her life, her love, her hard-earned peace, it was all under threat again. But she and Alexander had something Victoria and Julian didn't: trust. A bond forged in chaos, proven in crisis. Together, they vowed to fight, to expose the truth, and to emerge stronger. Victoria and Julian launched a final attempt to manipulate Emily, sending threats, creating public rumors, and even staging a chance meeting at a gala to isolate her from Alexander. The tension reached its peak as Emily confronted them directly, exposing their lies to the world and revealing the depths of their manipulation. Alexander, meanwhile, leveraged his business and personal influence, ensuring that every plan they attempted failed spectacularly, while protecting Emily at every turn. The confrontation was intense, emotional, and public, forcing Victoria to face consequences she had never anticipated. After the storm passed, Emily and Alexander emerged victorious. The threats were neutralized, their enemies defeated, and their love stronger than ever. Emily realized that her life had transformed, from a poor girl struggling to survive to a woman who had faced unimaginable trials and emerged empowered, loved, and respected. Alexander held her hand, whispering softly, "You survived everything. Not because I protected you, but because you are stronger than anyone imagined." Emily smiled, tears in her eyes, and leaned into him. Their journey was far from ordinary, but had proven one thing: love, trust, and resilience could conquer even most relentless adversity. And as they looked out over the city skyline, hand in hand, they knew no one, not Victoria, not Julian, not the world itself, could ever break what they had built together. The calm after Victoria's defeat was only temporary. Emily had begun to rebuild her life with Alexander, settling into the rhythms of marriage, love, and trust. Every morning, she woke to the soft sunlight streaming into the grand mansion, feeling safe for the first time in months. But deep down, a cold shadow of unease lingered, a sense that something was coming, something they had not anticipated. It started with a letter. A single unmarked envelope left at the mansion's doorstep. No signature, no name, just a stark black seal. Emily picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside, she found a photograph, an image of her mother, taken from a distance, sitting outside a cafe. But she was not alone. Behind her, barely visible, was a shadowy figure. Someone Emily did not recognize, but the sense of danger radiating from the image was undeniable. Alexander, observing her reaction, took the letter gently. His eyes narrowed, scanning the photograph. "This isn't Victoria," he said, his voice steady but edged with tension. "This is someone new, someone skilled, someone who knows how to remain unseen until it's too late." Emily's chest tightened. She had faced threats before, had survived manipulations and blackmail. But the feeling this time was different. It wasn't just about power or money. It was personal, intimate, aimed at breaking her from within. The following morning, a subtle pattern emerged. Their security systems, no matter how advanced, were being tested. Cameras were mysteriously disabled at specific times. Certain employees acted strangely, delivering false information or omitting crucial details. Alexander recognized the signs immediately: a shadow operative, highly trained, capable of infiltrating even the most secure environments. Emily, despite her fear, refused to hide. "We can't let them win, Alexander. We've survived before, we'll survive again. We fight, we expose them, and we end this." Alexander studied her for a long moment. Her determination was palpable. He felt a surge of admiration mixed with the cold weight of the threat before them. "Then we prepare," he said. "Every detail, every person. Nothing will catch us off guard." Days passed in a tense rhythm of preparation, observation, and strategic planning. Emily trained alongside Alexander, learning to anticipate threats, recognize manipulation, and safeguard the people she loved. Every movement, every decision carried the weight of their lives. Then the breakthrough came. A new name surfaced in intelligence. "She's testing, watching, waiting for a mistake." Emily shivered. "How do we know what her mistake looks like?" Alexander leaned back, fingers steepled. "We don't. Which is why we can't act like the normal, predictable people we've been. Every step has to be deliberate, every gesture calculated." For the next several days, their routine became a high-stakes mental chess game. Leora's moves were subtle, yet devastating in their potential. Anonymous emails, strange phone calls, and manipulated social media posts aimed at Emily began to circulate, attempting to undermine her reputation and erode the trust she shared with Alexander. Then Julian reappeared, unexpectedly, unannounced. His presence reignited fear and confusion, despite having been previously neutralized by Alexander's strategic maneuvering. Emily immediately felt the tension in the room. Julian's gaze lingered too long, his smile too knowing. "I'm here to help," he said casually. "I know things you don't." Alexander's hand moved slightly toward a concealed drawer, fingers brushing the edge of his personal weapon. "You've lied too many times," he said, voice low and threatening. "Leave now, or you won't have the chance to explain." Julian's smile never faltered. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "Not yet. But I see the situation differently. Perhaps we can cooperate." Emily felt a knot in her stomach. Julian's return could either be a lifeline or a trap, and she didn't yet know which. Alexander, reading her unease, finally spoke. "Don't be distracted. Focus on the threat that matters. Leora is the one who can destroy everything we've built." Meanwhile, Leora's influence was quietly spreading. Key business partners of Alexander began receiving anonymous reports of falsified scandals involving Emily. A single leak, a single misstep, could undo years of careful planning, destroy reputations, and even risk the stability of the Reed empire. Emily and Alexander spent long nights strategizing. They worked to anticipate Leora's next move, tracking patterns, intercepting messages, and planting countermeasures. Yet with every step forward, they felt her eyes on them, calculating, omnipresent patient. One night, Emily stood alone in the grand ballroom, looking at her reflection in the massive crystal windows. She saw herself, the poor girl who had once feared survival, now standing on the precipice of danger, powerful yet vulnerable. A single notification pinged on her phone. It was from an unknown number. A single line. Power tempts everyone, even those who think they are untouchable. Emily's breath caught. She knew immediately it was Leora. And this time, the game had truly begun.